So most people who follow me know that I follow these birth rate trends like a hawk, and people are consistently sending me these articles when they come across them before me. So now we're going to talk about the baby bust of Britain. This is coming out of The Guardian. It's titled "The Baby Bust: How Britain's Falling Birth Rate is Creating Alarm in the Economy." So their birth rate is plummeting to hell as well. All right, it says cost, the climate crisis, and choice are all factors in a demographic revolution, presenting huge challenges for government. Having children has become an unaffordable luxury for many of her generation, says Vanessa, a 35-year-old project manager living in Brighton. My friends who managed to start a family, without exception, all received large sums of money from their parents to get on the property ladder. For those of us not fortunate enough, we are trapped in the rental market, largely with insecure, poorly paid employment. Vanessa's outlook is also clouded by concerns about the climate crisis, crumbling public services, and the plummeting mental health of young people, she says. Put these into the mix, and you have a perfect storm for declining birth rates. Her decision is replicated worldwide. It really is. The number of women of childbearing age is in long-term decline across Europe, parts of Asia, South America, and the U.S. A situation made worse by the steep drop in the number of women and their partners who either want or are able to have children. Okay, so let's look at this graph. This is the total fertility rates compared across selected countries. So we have England and Wales, we have France, we have Germany, Italy, Finland, Japan, and South Korea. England and Wales is the reddish color. This dark blue is France. France has one of the highest birth rates in the EU. Obviously, you guys can see South Korea. We've talked about South Korea extensively. South Korea is at the very bottom across the world. Right above South Korea, it looks like, what's this lighter blue, is Italy, and then we have Japan, and then we have Finland. Finland is also pretty low. I have read up on them. Poland is also pretty low. It's not listed. America is sitting around 1.6. So this is where the different countries compare to each other. While the issues facing governments from rapidly aging populations are relatively familiar, a decline in fertility rates that was once limited to Japan has spread across the world. Today, almost every continent has a growing age dependency ratio as average birth rates fall and people live longer. If the global population hits 10.4 billion in the 2080s as predicted, it will only be because sub-Saharan Africa has continued on its current trend, pushing the population across the African continent from about 1.5 billion to as many as 2.5 billion. Here we look at the trends and the implications for future governments of a demographic revolution. All right, it says how the UK is affected. The total fertility rate across England and Wales fell to 1.49 children per woman in 2022 from 1.55 in 2021, according to the Office of National Statistics, ONS. As a benchmark, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, says that to maintain the population, the replacement rate, often known as the R rate, needs to be at least 2.1 children per woman. It has been well documented that the pandemic, rather than spark a baby boom, had the reverse effect. Yet the recent drop in fertility has shocked demographers. The rate was already declining starting in 2010. Then came COVID-19, the Russian invasion of the Ukraine, and a deepening of the climate crisis, which all appeared to add a further downward shift, taking the fertility rate to the lowest since comparative data began being kept in the 1930s. Anne Barrington, a professor of demography and social statistics at Southampton University, says the Human Fertility Database covering England and Wales documents the 1960s baby boom, the 1970s baby bust, the fluctuations of the 80s and 90s that kept things fairly stable, increases through the 2000s and 2010s, and then a decline to the historical low levels we have seen today. The trend in Scotland follows the same pattern, but on a lower trajectory during each period over the last 60 years. Ireland follows the same pattern on a slightly elevated path. ONS figures tracking live births tell the same story of decline. They show 605,000 in England and Wales in 2022, a 3.1% fall from 2021, and the lowest number since 2002. I will say this, I'm at the gym. That is what you hear in the background. I'm at the gym, just in case people are wondering. So this tracks the total fertility rate in England and Wales, which decreased in 2022. So you can see the trajectory throughout the years. Here's the Second World War. You can see these peaks and valleys. You see that it kind of levels off in the 1980s to 2000s. It dropped a bit, goes up a bit, comes back down. It says this figure is not an all-time low because the UK's population has been expanding since 2003, when the UK embraced the free movement of people from countries that had recently joined the EU. Opening its doors to workers from Eastern Europe resulted in an increase in total births and maintained fertility rates, which were about the same for UK-born and foreign-born women at the time. We have talked about this when we've done other birth rate stories, that immigration is keeping some of these countries afloat because the people that are there are not having the babies. It is the population that is becoming, they're being brought up by the immigrants, despite the fact that many of these countries also demonize immigration as well. This part right here. But when the record numbers of women are reaching the age of 30 child-free, the effect has clearly waned. According to the latest data, half of the women born in 1990 were childless by their 30th birthday, the first generation for which that is true. It's the economy. When the Observer asked readers, including Vanessa, to say why they had not had children or had restricted the size of their family, most replied that financial constraints were the main reason. Hannah, a 35-year-old marketing executive in London, says she has been unable to have the 2 children she wanted with her partner of 10 years, despite moving to a cheaper area to secure a bigger home. This whole childcare thing is a refrain that we are seeing globally. Let's get back to the article. It says childcare costs were prohibitively high, along with other costs of living. She says, the family we want to have is financially out of reach. We have only ever had one holiday together since our relationship began. We are cutting down on food bills and looking for extra work to make having a child happen. She and her partner are considering moving abroad. In the early 2000s, Britain and France were outliers in Europe. Both countries had generous family benefits and governments with a stated aim of supporting children. The scale of generosity, from tax credits for low earners to an expansion of early years centers and childcare subsidies, meant to both countries under the Labour in UK and Gaullist centre-right in France, arrested declines over previous decades. In the UK and France, these subsidies were scaled back after the recessions of 2008 and 2009. Austerity across all public services was the message from Nicolas Sarkozy, France's president from 2007 to 2012, and from the UK's coalition government from 2010 to 2015. For all the impact of the welfare and public service cuts, a study by Fathom Consulting indicates those interested in creating a family look further ahead. In the aftermath of the financial crash of 2008, it was clear that the future for many households looked bleak, with incomes flat and costs, especially housing, on a steady incline. Without the optimism of previous generations, couples decided not to have children, according to the initial findings from a study of Japan that links the decline in fertility with periods when a future outlook for the economy was uncertain. That makes sense. These people in government really need to pay attention to what is being said. Childcare is too expensive, housing is too expensive, wages are stagnant, and this whole child-free movement is spreading globally. So jump in, let me know what you think. What are you seeing where you are? Are you seeing women over the age of 30, the only ones having babies? Are you seeing women in their 20s having babies? Chime in and let me know. Don't forget to like, comment, and share.